Hi everyone, Eric here. I thought I'll do a short update video about like what I am planning to do now after I finished this video game that I've been working on for a long time. Yeah, Virtuous Heaven is out. Please buy it on Steam if you haven't. If you have bought the game on Steam, please write a positive review. That would be great. It's currently sitting at 5. It needs 10 for like a rating to be displayed, which would be cool. But yeah, always feel weird doing this because I personally hate all of this SEO shit, but whatever. It's the platform, and the platform tells you that you have, like, well, Steam doesn't tell you that you have to do it. It's just that the way they have built it kind of like pushes people into like this kind of like stuff, which anyway, it's ugh. But yeah, write a positive review anyway. It would be great. Also, let me know if you find any bugs in the game, because they still seem to be some. So I just today fixed a bug that was probably guaranteed to happen to anyone who ever like loaded like a save file in the game, but only really occurred like towards the latter part of the game. So like not everyone have found it, but like if you have finished Witcher 7, it's very likely that you've like either ran into that bug or like had the potential to. But I only learned about it last weekend, which is a bit of a shame because it was based on a typo that I've just like that was easy to fix. But anyway, if you find bugs or something that you think is strange, let me know. I cannot fix things if I don't know if they're there. So that would be cool. Aside from that, like they haven't really, considering how awful the Steam Next demo went in early 2023, it is astonishing how little problems the like final version of Virtuous Heaven has or had, which is still a bit strange. In general, like the last few weeks were a bit strange because I've been for like since 2018, I always had some kind of half-finished project lying around that I had to finish. It was either like Virtuous Heaven, or for a while it was GB Rover. Both of these games are done. And this is now like for the first time in a very long time where I like don't have anything that's kind of like partially on its way to like a completed video game. It is just just a strange situation to be in, and like now I have to like figure out, or like I have time for me to actually create like foundations for what I want to do next, and think about what I want to do next, and think about like how I want to like again what I want to do with this great and completely uncompromised medium that I chose to express myself in. But yeah, it's a strange situation. But anyway, overall I'm fairly happy with like how Virtuous 7 is being received from what I can see. It's going well. One thing that makes me kind of happy is that at least right now, again, player numbers are fairly low, but still about the same amount of people have played Virtuous 7 for 10 minutes as they have for over 3.5 to 4 hours, which is like right now the maximum of like playing time that I can see on Steam. Which is cool because like this is kind of like suggests to me that a lot of people, that if people basically play the like go through the game, they tend to finish it. Like the highest numbers of players are like equally people who just start the game and people who finish the game. So again, who knows what statistics are otherwise, but I found this interesting. And again, like the numbers are like relatively low, so like who knows and whatever and anything. But yeah, there exists a speedrun of Virtuous 7 that I did. Still thinking about like maybe doing a 100% speedrun, but I also have to like write the guide for the other one because I cannot just do a speed run and then say, well, you figure it out. But the problem, and this is like, this like in general, like also for like the idea of like, okay, what's planned for the game in general, is like, it really hit on me that for me the game's done. I don't really want. I have no plans of adding anything. Whatever the game is the game. Well, the one thing that I would like to add is, again, for the Steam version, a Steam Cloud support, because people have asked for it, and it makes sense with stuff like Steam Deck in mind to have it. I did not try to put it in before release because I did not want to put this kind of stuff on my plate when I was already very busy with getting the rest of the game in order. And also, yeah, I'm having some like personal battles with like this newest version of GameMaker, which, yeah, does things to my projects that I don't want. And like recently just destroyed all of my settings, which was also awesome. Like the games still work and compile, but like it's cool to basically imagine you build yourself an office space, have everything set where you want it, and then one day you come into your office space and someone has rearranged your furniture, which is very annoying. And then you like put everything back in place, you leave your office, come back the next day, and someone has rearranged it again. It happened twice, which is very frustrating. Also, like the Steamworks implementation for GameMaker is incredibly annoying, and honestly not very well documented. So like I am working on the Steam Cloud support. If occasionally you look at Virtua 7 on Steam and you see something appear like Steam Cloud error, that is me fiddling around with it because for some reason the debug mode does not work for me. I'm trying to use it, it doesn't register, even though it should, but it's like, anyway, that's happening. I'm trying to do it. I will put it in if I can get it to work without having to rewrite the save system. If it turns out I would have to rewrite the save system, then I'm sorry, the game won't have Steam Cloud support, because I will not do that. Because imagine, like, the game, again, like 7-year-old, like, code. Now, a lot of the save system isn't that old, but it's still a lot of stuff that is, like, has a lot of, like, weird tech debt and all of it, and I don't know, like, where everything lands at this point anymore, so I do not want to go very deep into this, also because I don't want to risk destroying people's save files in that process. So like I'm very careful here, but I think it's possible. I just need to like get my head around the way I can get GameMaker to communicate with Steam. I already was able to manage to upload some kind of file to some kind of Steam Cloud. Would be cool if I had any means to like see them or check them, which I couldn't find so far. I'm pretty sure there is one, but well, documentation is also a thing. But yeah, I'm plugging away at it every now and then, but it's also like not the thing where I'm saying, okay, I have to now work every day of the week on this, because no, I worked a lot of time on this game, and now I have the privilege to not work on it every day, and I will take that. So that's that part. Aside from that, it's really like right now I have lost basically, considering that this game took up so much space in my brain, it's astonishing how quickly it left. But I think that's great. Sometimes you're just finished with something, and I am emotionally, at least. Again, I will still fix problems, and there are things that I still want to do, but I'll do that over time, and I will not do that very quickly, at least the adding things. Again, bug fixes I'll do as quickly as I can, because I would like for people to be able to play the game. That would be great. But yeah, that's the general thing. But again, Um, if you bought the game and enjoyed your time with it, please leave a positive review on Steam. That's just the one thing that I would like to ask. Also, like, let's just go on a quick rant about this. What I don't like about this, like conceptually, about me having to ask people for positive reviews is I'm already asking people to buy the game. That's already a pretty big ask. Hey, give me this amount of money and you get my video game. There's a lot of trust involved in this, especially considering that, like, relatively speaking, no one knows who I am. So then going back and saying, oh, well, sure, cool, you've bought the game, but could you also take, I don't know, 5 minutes out of your day and like write a bunch of words so that like Steam's astrology machine might judge my game slightly better than it does right now? And I feel this just feels bad to me. And I don't like doing it because it feels like entitled on my end in a very bad way. Like, maybe entitled is the wrong word, but like again, like, it feels like, okay, you've given me money and now I'm asking you to do work for me. Because people are not writing these, like most people that are not writing these Steam reviews for themselves or because they really want to express something, but because, well, they were kind of, and I don't mean this in a judgmental way, kind of guilt-tripped into it. Because this is like not only me doing this, right? Like a lot of small game developers are asking for positive reviews. So a lot of people who buy smaller games know that, oh, it's kind of kind of helpful if I would do that. And the flip side of it all is then the implication. It's not explicitly stated, and most people do not think about this that way, but still the flip side of this all is, well, if I don't write a positive review, then I'm actually not quite of a fan of indie games or something, and that's garbage. Like, it should be enough that people buy games and play them. Like, I'm so much more happy about seeing that people are able to finish Witcher's Heaven, and that the game itself is built in such a way that it gets people to finish the game, because there was something I was incredibly scared of that I failed at that horribly. So seeing that is really cool. But that's something that Steam doesn't care about. And like all of this shit doesn't care about. It cares about like if like Gamer X wrote like, oh yeah, this game's cool, with a thumbs up. And yeah, I don't like this system at all. And itch.io isn't any better in that regard because it also has a rating system, which sucks. So, and you also see there are people begging for positive reviews, which is like, this entire system is so awful. It's just awful. Again, buying the game and playing the game should be enough. Like, you should not also beg for people to say something nice underneath it or something. Again, it's cool if it happens, but anyway, write a positive review if you can. That would be nice. But also, I can understand if someone doesn't want to do it. I'm incredibly grateful for people who buy and play the game, honestly. Still waiting for someone to find all fruits. Aside from me, no one has done that. And there's actually what I think the cooler stuff, but whatever. But yeah, let's talk about what else comes and what I'm doing. So there are like basically two things that I'm sort of like twiddling around with, one more than the other. But still, let's talk about like the lesser of these, which is tabletop games. These are like two projects that I started earlier this year, and I'm like, sort of looking for ways how to finish them. The bigger one of these is called The Last Big Race, or The Final Big Race. I always forget like how I worded it. which is a game about driving a cursed car during the last big 24-hour race ever. Cursed not meaning in magically cursed, though I guess it could also be meaning that, but like more in, well, for some reason this thing never won. But like very often something very strange happened to it. Kind of like, imagine something like, you always have this in sports where like specific athletes or teams, even when they're like somewhat or relatively successful, have like this weird loser energy to them where they kind of never really, like, they're considered good or like even like very good, but never really, like, every time they somewhat get close to like achieving something great, something happens and they lose. And this also happens in sports car racing. I always like, if you want to waste your time, look up the winning record, or like especially what happened during the races for like the Toyota like sports car racing team or like World Endurance Championship team from 2012 until 2018. There's some like incredible stuff in there. And even though Toyota has won Le Mans a few times since then, there's still like, they still have in my eyes loser energy, which for me makes them interesting. And in general, so like, this is the idea. You have like, you are drivers in a car with loser energy. It's the last big 24-hour race. Well, there are like two framings in this game. The first one is, well, it's the last big 24-hour race because the car company that basically funds this car, this loser car, will stop by the end of the season. The other framing is that what nobody knows in this abstract game world that is being built there is that like this 24-hour race that you are about to play will be the last one, because like by the end of the year capitalism will be over and then nobody needs to do races to do car propaganda anymore. Which is my personal wish, but also, you know, it's also kind of like a weird way for me to negotiate this weird inner conflict that I have from watching these races and knowing how incredibly morally compromised this entire like competition is, like in so many ways. But also it generates some very interesting drama and stories, and that's like, it's a weird conflict. And in a way, this game is like an attempt of mine to show a little bit about what's interesting about these races, even though they're like very arcane and hard to explain, even for people who watch motorsports. But yeah, this like bubbles around. I was hoping to get it done before like the 24 hours of Le Mans. It's kind of like a, hey, look, you can play this, but that won't happen. In general, the basic system of the game works. Well, from what I can tell from doing 2 playtests, the problem with tabletop games is you always need other people to test them, really. But from the 2 playtests that I did, and especially like the revisions that I did between the first and the second playtest, the second playtest went really well in terms of like, it did like, it most like almost exactly did what I want this game to be, which is dealing with problems and randomness, which again is a big part in these in these races, and trying to like extract drama and characterization out of this. The game in general is like framed as like, oh, and like the car company is doing a documentary, so it's kind of like the scene framing and the characterization is all like done via trying to frame everything as like, oh, and the documentary frames like this part of the race in this way. These are the problems that occurred and all that kind of stuff. And again, always with these games, it really depends on the players that you have, and obviously me making the game also means I know exactly kind of like how I want to push things. But still, it went really well. However, the explanations still need a lot of work. There are a lot of moments where I kind of have to like explain more than what is in the rules. Like, and I think the intentionality of like how I want people to like basically how to instruct people to to like approach the game and like frame the scenes that like build the game and the challenges and how to think about this, because in some ways it's a bit abstract. That needs a bit more like work. I probably like the final version also probably needs some kind of art, because it's, well, I can't just like put a blank PDF of it out. I think that feels a bit but yeah, it's in the works. Oh, I don't know how long it takes. It's again one of these where like I'll do a playtest every now and then. If I get a group working, I try to work on like a revised version of the rules, and then I see what works and what doesn't. And this is like a fairly slow process. The other game, however, is like basically done. I just need to put it in a presentable state, and that game is called right now it's just called Skeleton Ball Game, which isn't like probably like it needs a better name, I think. It's a game about being a skeleton in the Dark Souls 3 Skeleton Ball. If you don't know what this is, look it up. It's I think the greatest representation of skeleton video game, or in general like fantasy undead skeleton ever. And I'm kind of obsessed with it. I don't know why, but at some point it happened, and like earlier this year I realized, wait a second, I can't just make a like, I think that the overall term for it is descendant from the queen, I think. So for people who don't know, tabletop games, For the Queen is a card-based tabletop role-playing games where like people draw cards from a deck of cards, and it's about, you're like part of like a traveling retinue of a queen, and there's like each of you has a history with it, and basically each card you draw is associated with a prompt, and you draw the card, you look up like what prompt you have, and you try to answer it, and there's like you kind of like build out characters and the world and the situation at large. It's a fairly, and I mean this in a good way, a fairly simple system, and that basically in order to make this, all you have to do is like a prompt for each playing card, and then some kind of like introductory stuff. A lot of these games will like try to use basically this prompt-based system, have additional things to it, but right now Skeleton Ball Game only has like, okay, yeah, the card prompts, and like if you draw, I think it was the Ace of Clubs, it's over. Because, well, that's the card where like that says, the hero has killed you, or has destroyed the skeleton ball. It's not really, you don't have to be dead, but who knows. And yeah, I did a test with friends last week, and I kind of realized I can't just publish this. This is fine. It works. It's silly and small, but that's what it's supposed to be. This doesn't need to be a very big thing, but again, right now it's just like a loose Google Doc, so I cannot really publish that one. And again, I think it needs a little bit more of like a part at the beginning, and maybe something smaller at the end to like sort of talk about like, okay, now that the game's over, here like some questions about your skeleton or like the world or something. I don't know. So that's still need to be done, but it's kind of there. And again, this is like mostly a matter of like sitting down and doing the work, which is always a bit of a thing with me and tabletop games, because I need to explain these in text, that's complicated. But yeah, let's talk about that last thing, which is the big thing, and the thing that I also did in December. I think I did a video about this as well, or at least a blog post. I think I also did a video. I don't know if it was Patreon exclusive or not. I don't know. Which is what I'm currently calling JRPG game, because who knows what this is going to be called and how this will look at by the end. But like the basic idea is that I'm done with action games. I don't want to do any more of them. This is like something I realized, like, I don't know, like almost 2 years ago at this point, I think, where it's just when I was like fiddling around with like a turn-based strategy game, and one thing I noticed there already was like, okay, sure, there were like bugs in there, and like some of them were incredibly horrible, but fixing things and building things felt so much easier because everything happened in a set order. The timing was always the same. Instead of an action game where you have this very free-flowing mess of timing and spacing and like different things doing different actions at different times, and that's hard to like. That was always hard for me to like kind of like build things that reliably did things to put it like this, and it was always frustrating. I kind of got there by the end with Witcher 7, but still. It's also in a sense, and again, there's like, it's not really true, but like in a way, at least like at the beginning, it's true. Turn-based games are also like much less like demanding on a visual level. I don't need, like, for example, if I were to build an action game and come to a boss fight, I still need to have animations for that boss because I need to have like the animation timing to understand how the attacks work and what I need to tweak. With a turn-based game, you don't really need that, and especially like with a JRPG game where you'll have like where you can build most of the game with very static sprites. At some point or another, maybe there will be animations, who knows, but even then you can make much more, like, you can basically make something work with mostly static images if you use good effects instead, which is a different kind of like visual work, but it's at least something where I'm thinking like maybe like a lot of this stuff is also for me trying to figure out, and this is like something that's constantly going. I'm like, okay, how can I find ways to get me to do the things that I need to do and that I want to do? And how can I make the things that like are usually blocking me from progressing forward out of the way as quickly and cleanly as I can? And that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that I like, for the last year or so, I've been, and this is like part of the blog post that I wrote in December, when I basically in last December I took the month off Witcher 7 because I was completely done with the game, like emotionally at that point, and just told myself, okay, like you have these loose ideas for a JRPG game, just sit down and try to build something and see how it feels and like what you build out of it. Yes, I did that. And that was based on a lot of ideas I had, like in parts, like been carrying around for a long time, and in parts, like kind of like stacked up over the last year. And what I'm working right now is sort of based on the work I did in December, but also based on ideas I have now. And some parts of like what my initial plan in December was are now kind of not that important anymore, or like way less, because like one big thing that happened between me working on that on that prototype thing in December and now is that like over New Year's I played Dungeon Encounters, which does a lot of cool stuff with very, very little. And that kind of gave me ideas for other things that were incompatible with the ideas I had previously, and I find these ones, again, more interesting, so like I had to make some adjustments. But anyway, where I'm right now is is I'm in the process of basically rewriting not the complete battle system, that's still very simple, but more like the way how actions are handled. The old system that I had was very fragmented. So enemies had their attacks, and these were specified, and they had specified basically objects that handled code for this specific kind of attack. And that was all. It was basically, it was working, but it was basically set up in such a way that the more complexity I would introduce to it, the larger of a balloon of like edge cases and weird things I would just create, because like if I already had like with like 4 different enemies and like 6 attacks, I already like, I don't know, 4 to 8 different, oh, this thing applies this status effect and this object does this. Like if I have like an object for each different status effect for like one enemy, and imagine you have like 40 enemies, then you end up with like, I don't know, 30 different objects that are just for like, okay, this deals this type of damage, and that's like very unwieldy and makes it hard also to like balance out, and makes it hard to find problems, and all that kind of stuff. It's also like something I in a way Virtual 7 helped me here, because one thing I did between December and now was rewriting the way the special attacks in Virtua 7 work, which are also like much more unified than what I had previously. And I'm kind of using a similar idea, or like a similar approach I used for that system for this, but it's a bit more complicated, because I'm kind of like trying to build it in such a way that I can expand it easily without making what is actually happening in the game more complicated. So what I'm building is I have one big spreadsheet, or like one spreadsheet that has like where each attack will be listed with certain like characteristics, like, oh, this is a single target attack, this is like, oh, this is something that applies a status effect, this is like a damaging attack, this is like a multi-target attack, this kind of stuff. And every action, like no matter if it's like a player action or an enemy action, or like if it's an item effect, like a spell, like a special move, whatever you can think of, will be in some way represented in that spreadsheet. And when a player or like an enemy performs a specific actions, it will pull that data from that spreadsheet, take some of its own like character stats, and this will build the attack, and all of that stuff will then be channeled through like one action thing that is gonna apply whatever thing it's going to apply to whatever the target is. So that's like, that sounds bad, but basically this is a unified system. No matter like who is performing the action, who is targeted, what kind of action is being performed, it all goes through one script, through one object, and like 2 different types of targeting, or like 3 at the end. Single target, multi-target, or everyone. And that's it. And that makes it, setting this up was a bit complicated, because I had to make very, very strict decisions on like, okay, if I build the system in like this specific way, this means certain things will not be possible. Like, for example, like I cannot change the targeting type of an attack. Like imagine like in Final Fantasy, right? You can press a button and you can turn like a fire spell from a single target attack into a multi-target attack. That's not possible in this system, because the targeting type is set in the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet is untouchable. You can, like, one of the early ideas I had while I was building up the spreadsheet was like, ooh, and you can maybe have a status effect that changes the targeting type of your attack, where you can say, ooh, this is now gonna, like, your single target attack is now doing multi-target. Where you might think, oh, doesn't that sound better? Well, maybe not, or whatever. But that's right now, that is not possible anymore, because I made the decision yesterday and said, No, the targeting type is set in the spreadsheet, and like what I put down in that game's domino board was the parameters of an attack in the spreadsheet are like fundamental realities, are like part of the fundamental reality of the world, or like of the game world, and cannot be changed and cannot be touched by players. It's a weird way for me about thinking these kinds of things, but like building this JRPG, like one big idea for me that drives this forward is this notion that things that are representative in in game form or in a story are also part of like the like fabric of the world it represents. Like one example, for example, if I don't know how I can explain this properly now, like without going completely off the rails, but I guess one thing would be, and this is like maybe a silly thing, but like I occasionally like refer to this. Imagine you're like a character in a farming game. You are not the protagonist. You're just, I don't know, like the the youngest son of or like the oldest son of the mayor. You are like, and the game treats you as, oh, you're one of the marriage candidates. The fun thing in farming games very often is that all of the bachelor characters are like have these, you know, oh, they have these wishes and dreams that they want to do in their lives, and then the game protagonist decides you are the wife or you are the husband, and that's what you're gonna be for the rest of your existence. Whatever dreams you have don't matter anymore. You are going to live in my house and stand in the corner for the rest of your life, because that's what happens in these games. And my thoughts is like, what if this is like, what if like, imagine being the chosen partner of a farming game protagonist and realize how you are slowly being warped into being the spouse instead of a person. And like being the spouse of a farming game protagonist turns you into a different type of being. It's weird, I know. But like this is stuff I'm thinking about. And this is why I need this spreadsheet for this JRPG game. Believe me, it's important that it's there, because you know what this spreadsheet also lets me do is like, you know, do fun things. What if, for example, you can find different ways to access this spreadsheet that isn't just like putting something from a menu? That's like something that is possible. You just need to figure out how to access it. And play around with that. And having this unified system enables me to like have more space to play around, have more space to explore what you can do in a JRPG bit. I talked a little bit about this in the previous blog post and back in December about what really interests me with JRPG battles is this idea of like characters and enemies trying to enact their version of reality upon each other, like in a like moment of great tension. That's how I look at these battles. And what I also find interesting is that since I wrote this stuff, and today Austin Walker has released like a basically still like work in progress version of like his tabletop game Realis, which in some ways deals with similar things. There, like, characters have sentences that they use to like basically gain fictional like agency within the story in some way or another. And like, I find this interesting to have a similar like sort of like similar concepts and ideas in that, though I'm pretty sure like I use it for completely different things. But like having this and like having this weird space between like, okay, what like having this weird space between like the names of actions in like a JRPG character's menu and like the attributes that have what like these things say about like the fabric of the world. I keep coming for this. I keep coming back to like the example of the Final Fantasy V blue mage ability, level 5 death, which is an ability that when you apply it to an enemy and that enemy's level is divisible by 5, it will instantly kill that enemy. And it will, I think that, yeah, that ability also overrides like immunity against instant death. But the interesting part here is that the attribute level, because like a mage can affect that, can touch it and use it to do something with it. Like having this spell called level 5 death means that level is in some way or another like a part of like the metaphysical structure of like a Final Fantasy world. Or again, to take dungeon encounters. In dungeon encounters has like an attack. I forgot what it's called, but it's basically it does damage or like damages like an enemy or like a player if their level is a prime number. Which again means that level is like a property that can be accessed and influenced by like abilities of of the entities that exist in that world. And that's something that I just find interesting. And again, this is something that is much more easier accessible and like possible to manipulate and play around with in like a turn-based battle system or like in a JRPG battle system, because everything else is so abstracted and so much more broken down into like very like components that like are much more descriptive in a way and much less about, again, I cannot build something like let me think about like or like let's just take level 5 death. Something like level 5 death would not work in an action game. How would you do that? It's not possible because the the fabric of the game system itself doesn't really let you play around with that in such a way, or if it wouldn't really touch the things that make action games interesting, because action games, it's much more about like expression and movement. And if you have just like an ability that says, okay, kill that enemy if its level is divisible by 5, what does that mean? You could have like level 5 jump, which means like your jump is higher if your level is divisible by 5. That could be interesting, but it's something, it's much harder to touch these things and play around with these things if you have like something where like everything moves and is physical in a weird way. And I can recommend like this is the other part, and I'm rambling now, and it's fine. I don't have anything to do, so this is why I'm recording this video. But there's the person who like directed Dungeon Encounters. Like Square Enix did like an interview with him, and I think the producer of the game. And basically, I think that he said, in a way, you can play Dungeon Encounters in like the Excel spreadsheet that he built, and in a way, that's what like JRPGs I think very often just are. Like RPGs in general, just like spreadsheets that like are in conflict with one another, or like the same spreadsheet that is like way like compare different things to one another and try to figure out what outcome you get, and then you lay a graphical interface on top of it in some way or another. So, and this sounds like, I don't say this, oh, these are just spreadsheets that are fighting each other. I don't say this or don't mean this demeaning in some way or another. I find this interesting. I find it interesting in that, like, you can really break these down into, like, separate units of information that you can use to tell stories with and that you can use for characterization. Like, one big thing that is in the back of my head when I'm like building the system is also, how can I use this to like characterize someone? How can I use this to like reflect a specific faction's view on the world through these characteristics of these actions that they can perform and the attributes that they use, and the way they are manifested in the game then at the end, and how these might differ from the way the players act with them or act on them. So of course, in a way, you can say it's just a spreadsheet, but like there's like the fascinating part for me is that like you can use these to tell a story, and you can use this to express things, and you to show something about someone or about a culture, about like entities or like about a world, via like basically a math problem. And I think that like this isn't like a very profound thought. I'm like, this is like not. Oh, I'm not running around saying, "Oh, I'm the first one who realizes." No, I'm not. Definitely not. Again, look, the person who made Dungeon Encounters, you can see that like there's like a lot of like this stuff in there. Where I think there's like a similar approach to it. Maybe not as like weirdly expressed as I do, but like in the sense that like the approach behind it and like how it's used is similar. But anyway, it's something that's in my mind and what I want to explore here. And I'm like maybe based on the fact that I'm talking about this for fairly longer than anything else, you can see I'm fairly excited about this because again, there's a lot of stuff that I want to do or would like to do with that. I hope I get around to doing it, because well, just having the battle system doesn't make the rest of the game. There's still a lot of other open questions, but right now because in my eyes the most important part of these games is the battle system, because that's what drives everything forward. You can have like cool narrative or whatever, cool characters, like whatever story, cutscenes, graphics, anyway. But the thing that drives it forward, that thing that like creates the tension and the drama at the end, comes from the battle system in my eyes. Especially the more you strip down the aesthetic and the presentation, which is naturally something that happens with my games because I'm just one person. So it has to be simple. Graphics have to be simplified. Sound and all that, it has to be simplified because I cannot spend years like just on one enemy. And I don't want to. But so these parts have to be like unearthed and worked around with. And yeah, that's the one thing. Maybe just like shortly mentioning, like the narrative premise had changed in that way between December and today, because I read Lord of the Rings and had some ideas. Like, don't want to get too much into specifics, but it's not like, oh, let's do Lord of the Rings, but more like how can you take the world premise of Lord of the Rings and tell a different story with it than the one that has been told, and in some way or another. It's not exactly that, but like reading it gave me. So prior to this year, the last time I read Lord of the Rings was I think in 2002, so like 23 years ago. A lot of stuff happened since then, and I learned a lot of things. And I realized certain things in that story were like basically the thing is, so Lord of the Rings, end of the Second Age. So end of the First Age, a bunch of humans piss off to their separate island that they got rewarded for like killing the big evil man. Then Second Age happens, they hang around there. At some point it falls apart. End of the Second Age, they go back to Middle Earth and just like land somewhere and just decide, okay, this is our kingdom now. And like the interesting part there is that other people have already lived there. What happened to these people? The book Lord of the Rings and like the stuff around it doesn't really address any of that in any shape or form, aside from like, yeah, they were kind of pissed that they were driven out and are now evil. And somewhere, and that's like not really like. I think there's like a space for it, right, where you can like try to like what happens when like the like kings from the sea come to your land, but you're not one of them, but just like other people. But yeah, that's like, this is like in my head in that sense. Again, I try, like with that, I really try to like not get too specific about anything, because who knows, really? Who knows what, like, everything is fickle and weird. And like getting too bogged down, like, oh, I want this to be like exactly like this, and this character has to show up, and this has to happen. Even though I have like thoughts about all of this, I have to be ready. And like in general, you have to be ready in these situations to like just like throw it all away, because nothing is real at this point. This is all like imagining things. The battle system and the spreadsheet will be real, because that's like what's the important part of it all right now. And then basically the idea for me is right now, finish that, start building encounters, and hopefully maybe at some point in a few months release like a tiny like example dungeon that you explore, where something happens, and it kind of mostly for the purpose of showing up what you can do with the system, what you can like, or like what I want to do with that, and like how you can like push and pull on different things, and how this all happens. And even with that, I don't know if these systems actually work, even though I'm building them right now, because like today I finished the part where, okay, now the enemies can attack you. That's cool. We'll have to see if what exists at the end is actually engaging and interesting from like a systemic point of view, where like you as a player find it interesting to figure out ways to bend these things to your liking, or also like how to build something that works for people who do not want to do that at all, who just want to have a fireball, which is fine, I guess. But what if you could use like pull the fireball from a different enemy that has a different damage model? Anyway, yeah. So that's the general thing of everything. Again, I'm mostly like, I don't know. I felt like talking about this more. No idea how often I'll do these in general, but it's been a strange, I don't know, like what's now 3 weeks since Witcher 7 came out. Doesn't feel like it, because the first week after the game came out, I was still pretty much in, okay, I need to work on Witcher 7. I need to work on Witcher 7. What the games are, what am I supposed to do now? And now the brain really switched over to, well, let's do something else. Like what? Witcher's what? It's like, and this is a bit strange. I did not expect the game to be this far gone from my brain this quickly. But yeah, still exciting stuff happening. I do not think that much about like the midterm to far future, because I don't think, like, I'm not very optimistic about a lot of things. Also about like, this is why I'm in a way saying I hope that I can get this system to work and like get like work towards a game with it, because I have no idea how long I'll be able to do that. I get welfare in Germany. Government change happened. I don't know what kind of shit they're planning and what's happening. I don't think it's going to be good for people like me. For some reason, I'm not able to get a job ever. So it's, I have to see. I'll do what I can. Having Witcher 7 now helps in that sense also, in terms of having a bit more income. In that sense also, like, if you want to help, please buy the game. Or tell others to buy the game. Like, from like artistic and whatever point of view aside, which is for me still the main reason why I finished this game at all, because, well, there wasn't really a lot of like commercial sense behind it. it like selling the game helps a ton with just being able to have like something of a comfortable existence. For example, with the way things are going, I might be able to get myself a new PC from what the game's been making, which is cool because the PC wasn't the best when I bought it, and it's going on to being 5 years old soon. And I think it will break soon. It's weird. I don't trust it. But anyway, talking too much. Hope you have a good time. Please write a positive review for Witcher 7 on Steam if you haven't. If you enjoyed the game. If you don't have Witcher 7, can I suggest that you buy a copy? That would be cool. I would enjoy. I would appreciate it really. If you can write a review, but honestly, I'm incredibly happy if people buy the game and find it enjoyable enough that they finish it and play it and have a good time with it. The review is nice, and sure, it helps probably somewhere at some point. But again, considering how long I was worried that aside from me, no one will be able to ever even get like 20 minutes into the game without dying horribly all the time. Just being able to see, oh, wait a second, a lot of people have finished the game actually at this point. That's kind of cool. This makes me genuinely makes me happy when I think about it and I'm not in a negative mood. But just thinking about this is nice. But yeah, again, hope you have a nice time. Do all these things with Witcher 7 and keep an eye out for like me working on this cool spreadsheet that I'm making. It's so cool, you have no idea. Anyway, see you around and have a good one.